In the 19th century, Karl Marx formulated ideas that would radically change the course of world history. His works continue to resonate in the 21st century, not only in political movements, but also in philosophy, economics, and sociology. In this video, we will explore Marx's key philosophical concepts: historical materialism, class struggle, alienation, and his vision of a communist society. To understand Marx, we must begin with the intellectual environment that shaped him. Born in 1818 in Trier, Germany, Marx studied philosophy at the University of Berlin, where he was influenced by Hegel's dialectics. Hegel's dialectic, based on the idea that history progresses through contradictions and their resolution, became central to Marx's thinking, though Marx gave it a materialistic turn. Instead of focusing on abstract ideas, Marx argued that material conditions and economic relations drive history. At the core of Marx's philosophy is historical materialism. This theory posits that the material conditions of a society, its mode of production, determine its social structures, laws, politics, and ideologies. Marx believed that history is driven by the struggle between different classes over the control of productive forces. Let's take feudalism. In a feudal society, the productive forces are primarily land, and the social structure is defined by the relationship between the feudal lords who own the land and the peasants who work it. According to Marx, as new productive forces, like commerce and industry, develop, the old feudal system becomes obsolete, paving the way for capitalism. A fundamental element in Marx's theory is the class struggle, which he defines as the engine of historical change. For Marx, every society is divided into two main classes: those who own the means of production, the bourgeoisie, and those who sell their labor, the proletariat. Under capitalism, the bourgeoisie owns factories, land, and capital, while the proletariat owns only its labor power. Capitalism, Marx argued, inherently generates conflict between these two classes because the bourgeoisie profits by exploiting the labor of the proletariat. Workers produce value, but are paid less than the value they create, with the surplus value pocketed by the capitalists. This exploitation, Marx believed, would lead to increasing impoverishment, alienation, and ultimately, the revolutionary overthrow of capitalism. Marx's concept of alienation refers to the estrangement that workers experience under capitalism. Marx identifies four types of alienation. 1. Alienation from the product of labor. Workers have no control over the goods they produce. They create objects, but those objects belong to the capitalist. 2. Alienation from the act of production. Work becomes a mechanical, repetitive process, devoid of creativity or fulfillment. 4. Alienation from human nature. Marx believed that human beings are naturally creative and productive, but under capitalism, workers are reduced to mere cogs in the machine, unable to express their true selves. Example: consider a factory worker in the Industrial Revolution. Instead of feeling connected to the products they create, the worker is simply a means to an end, churning out goods to enrich the capitalist. This alienation, according to Marx, dehumanizes the worker, making their labor a source of misery rather than satisfaction. Marx was a fierce critic of capitalism, not only because of the exploitation and alienation it produces, but also because he believed it contained the seeds of its own destruction. He argued that capitalism is inherently unstable, prone to crises of overproduction and underconsumption. As the bourgeoisie seeks to maximize profits by squeezing wages, the working class becomes increasingly impoverished and unable to buy the goods they produce, leading to economic crises. Marx predicted that these crises, combined with the proletariat's growing awareness of their exploitation, would lead to a revolutionary uprising. Capitalism, like feudalism before it, would be overthrown, and a new form of society, communism, would emerge. One of Marx's most famous works, co-authored with Friedrich Engels, is the Communist Manifesto, 1848. In this text, Marx and Engels call for the proletariat to unite and overthrow the bourgeoisie. They argue that workers have nothing to lose but their chains. Key points from the manifesto. Abolition of private property. Marx believed that private ownership of the means of production was the source of exploitation. Communism would abolish private property, ensuring that the means of production are collectively owned. Proletarian revolution. Marx predicted that the contradictions of capitalism would lead to the working class rising up, seizing control of the state, and establishing a dictatorship of the proletariat, a temporary state in which the working class would rule in its own interests. A classless, stateless society. Ultimately, the goal of communism is to establish a society where classes no longer exist, and the state, whose primary function under capitalism is to protect the interests of the bourgeoisie, would wither away. Although Marx did not live to see the communist revolutions of the 20th century, his ideas profoundly influenced movements around the globe, from the Russian Revolution to socialist movements in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. However, Marx's philosophy has also been criticized. Critics argue that his predictions about the inevitable collapse of capitalism and the rise of communism have not come to pass. Others criticize his economic determinism, claiming that he underestimated the role of politics, culture, and ideas in shaping history. Moreover, many communist regimes that claimed to follow Marx's philosophy became authoritarian, leading to critiques that Marxist theory can be misapplied or lead to unintended consequences. Karl Marx's philosophy is not just a critique of capitalism, it's a call to action. His ideas challenge us to think critically about the society we live in and to imagine a future free from exploitation, alienation, and inequality. Whether we agree with his conclusions or not, Marx's work forces us to confront the deep-seated structures of power and privilege that shape our world. Thank you.